Chris Lee and Blayne Gilmer of Southeastern 14 here to preview LSU's road trip to face Mississippi State at Davis Wade Stadium in Starkville, Mississippi. That game Saturday, 11 a.m. You can catch it on ESPN. Odds makers have LSU as about a 9-point road favorite with a 53.5-point over-under as we do this on Sunday night, making for a predicted final of LSU 31, Mississippi State 22. Other computers of interest and what they have surmised here. ESPN's FPI has LSU as a 6-point favorite. SP Plus has LSU as just a 1-point favorite. Jeff Sagarin has LSU as a 3-point favorite. Again, accounting 3 points for the home field advantage on those. Average all it all out between those three and Vegas. You're looking at LSU as about a 5-point favorite. Blayne, should be a good game between an LSU team that had a get-right game against Grambling and a Mississippi State squad who might have made it a little more interesting than necessary with that overtime win against Arizona.
No doubt, no doubt. Two teams that have had kind of a roller coaster of a season so far, because LSU at times early in that game against Florida State, they were knocking on the door twice, Chris, in the red zone, couldn't get in the end zone. And if they punch those in early, they're up, maybe 14-0 on a Florida State team. And it's a different deal type there instead of going back and forth and things of that nature. So that was a little bit interesting there and let that one get tied. And then the same thing can be said for Mississippi State. Chris, they were 14-0, about to kick a field goal to make it 17-0 right before the half. They missed the field goal, and then DeLaura for Arizona has a couple of YOLO throws that he throws up there and just says, "Hey, we're letting it go," and then it turns into a totally different ball game. And I think both of these teams have had the best of times and worst of times already, kind of in the microcosm of their two game season so far.
Yeah, the difference, of course, Mississippi State won its not so great effort. LSU lost its to a Florida State team that I think is outstanding. But let's talk about the matchups. When LSU has got the ball, the Tigers run it 47% of the time. They average 6.6 yards per running play, which again adjusts for sacks. They are passing for 8.1 yards per passing play, only turning it over on 0.7% of the snaps, which is outstanding, and scoring 48 points a game. Mississippi State giving up 15.5 a game. Teams throw on the Bulldogs 51% of the time. State stops the run on running plays at a 4.1 yard per running play clip, 7.4 yards per passing play, and State is forcing turnovers at a phenomenal 6.2% of snaps. That can't continue. If you're half that, you're pretty elite. And State had, 5 turnovers? I think they might have all been picks, or 4 of them were picks. 2 of those by Jet Johnson, I think 1 by Nathaniel Watson. So anyway, State's linebackers continued to bring it as expected. Very interested to see what we get on this side of the matchup there, Blayne.
They've continued to be opportunistic this year. Of course, what's the consistency there? Zach Arnett, I know that he's now the head coach, but still, this is a defensive ball club with him at the helm of it now. It's totally switched, and I think anytime you have two leaders like that in Watson and Johnson there at the linebacker position, like you mentioned, they've been very, very good. Also, I mean, people don't give credit to Johnson there, Jet Johnson. If you looked at him, and I posted this tweet earlier on, Chris, in the year, if you look at a headshot, it looks like he's about to do your taxes for you. But then on Saturdays, he goes out there and is just ripping people's heads off and making unbelievably athletic plays. So I think that matchup against the LSU wide receiving core, because LSU, I think, knows that they're not really good at running the football. I mean, I really just don't think they think they can run the football on Mississippi State or on anybody at this point. They've not done it for 2 years, other than Jaden Daniels been able to run the football with any kind of consistency. None of the running backs have. So I see Mississippi State maybe shutting that down a little bit, but I do think they're going to try to get those linebackers in space and see what kind of plays they can make. And I think the back end of Mississippi State's defense will be tested. We'll see if Jaden Daniels will actually throw the football down the field, because if there's one thing there's one thing that we learned is he's still a little bit hesitant to do so against Florida State, when I thought for all the world they would be taking deep shots. They didn't really push it down the field till very, very late in that game when it was already out of hand. I think that's one place that Mississippi State has to have some question, because when Delora for Arizona dropped back and just chunked that thing, Chris, that's when some bad things happen for Mississippi State's defense.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not saying Mississippi State forcing turnovers is a fluke. What I'm saying is the rate at which it's doing it. It'd be like taking a great home run hitter and saying, "Hey, why can't Ronald Acuna hit 100 home runs? He's great, right?" Yeah, I think 3.3% was the best in the league a year ago. So that's my point. There's a little bit of that that's due to come back to earth. So yeah, very interested to see what Jaden Daniels can do against a State defense. It's been pretty good so far, in my opinion. When the Bulldogs have the ball, I don't know what we were watching Saturday night against Arizona when the Zach Arnett suddenly thought that he had the 85 Bears or something, the way they ran the ball. I think Will Rogers threw it 15 times. Mississippi State so far has only thrown it 52% of the time, which is the lowest it's been in a while. Now, to be fair, State's running the ball pretty well on the whole. 6.3 yards per rushing play. And actually, it's running it better than it's throwing it, 5.6 yards per passing play. Turning it over, not much at all, 0.7%. LSU is giving up 5.8 yards per rushing play, 7 yards per passing play, forcing turnovers on 2.4% of the snaps. I think LSU's defense is better than it's shown so far. It's giving up 27.5 points a game. Again, most of that coming against Florida State.
Part of the problem against Florida State, Chris, was when Travis would extend plays with his legs and make some plays off schedule. I don't know that Will Rogers is going to do that as much. He is crafty. He can slip out and do some things. But one of the reasons that I think you're seeing that yards per play on the pass plays come down a little bit is Will Rogers. I don't know. This may be total speculation. I wonder sometimes watching him play yesterday if he's totally healthy, because that ball does not look on some of the deep balls that he threw like it was just had the full command of it, like he was pushing it a little bit. So I don't know if there's anything there to that, but I think it a couple times fluttered on him, and I just don't know. That's not the Will Rogers that we've kind of seen in the past be able to do things. But hey, that's not uncommon for Mississippi State. Their yards per pass play, even last year, not that high in the air raid, a lot of short attempts and things like that. But I do think when you look at Woody Marks, when you look at, that's what they're calling him now. It used to be Jaquavius Marks. Now it's Woody Marks. So you got Woody Marks, you got Seth Davis, you got Pittman, all those guys. The angles that Kevin Barbay gets those guys to run the football and gets them going downhill in a hurry, I think that is phenomenal for this Mississippi State offense. And listen, when you have that kind of threat and you have a quarterback who is as talented and experienced as Will Rogers, I think that bodes well. And they're probably not – I know they had to, survive that game against Arizona, but I guarantee you there's some tricks in the bag. They've been saving for SEC play. And then LSU's defense, they just got tired a little bit against Florida State. Just that front seven without Mason Smith in there didn't have the ability to do as much of the rotation and things like that. Obviously, he should be back for this game here now. And, the question is, going into that game, they didn't even know, even if they'd had him against Florida State, if he'd been fully healthy, he was still dealing with a little bit of ankle injury stuff and things like that. So I'm interested to see how that front seven gets after Will Rogers. Can they get pressure? Because if they can't, this is where Mississippi State needs to take those shots down the field. Tulu Griffin, Robinson, all of these guys, Wally, because LSU did not protect well down the field when Florida State, tested them vertically. They just got beat a couple of times with Coleman over there for Florida State. So I think this is one where, hey, if you're Kevin Barbay, you got to dial up some shots in this game.
Yeah, Mark's actually leading the league in rushing, 250 yards, 5.8 per carry. But what I'm interested to see is how good is Mississippi State. I was kind of intrigued with this team leaving that opener against Southeast Louisiana State, and of course at Southeastern Louisiana State. Hey, look at the way the SEC schools didn't handle their business this weekend, and State probably feels. I'm not going to say State probably feels lucky to have won that Arizona game. That's probably not fair. It played with the lead the whole time. Sometimes game flow is a little different. But when you're 5-1 in turnovers, usually you don't expect to have to go to overtime to win a game. And so it was just a little bit of puzzling things between how Rodgers didn't throw the ball. Look, though, here's the thing. It's going to be loud in that place. I think State can give them a game, but ultimately I think LSU is a lot better team than we saw in Orlando against Tallahassee, and I'm taking the Tigers to win this one.
Yeah, I think one point that I didn't make when we were talking about the Mississippi State side of the ball on defense versus the LSU offense, what really hurt LSU against Florida State was that pass rush of Florida State, right? Jaden Daniels Mississippi State has not been able to generate. They had 1 sack last night against Arizona. Now, DeLar is a shifty guy. He can move around and create, but they had 1 sack, and I think they had 3 against Southeastern Louisiana. They're not necessarily just totally wrecking games, getting in the backfield. Can Zach Arnett create some havoc back there and force Jaden Daniels to get uncomfortable a little bit? Now, a lot of times Jaden Daniels can get out and be successful when that happens because he is so talented with his legs. But I think you got to get him off schedule. You got to get him uncomfortable. And I think if I was going to I know I've seen a spread of 9. What did you say that the spread was at latest check here as we're recording?
9 is what I saw on late Sunday afternoon on covers.com.
Yeah, I think that Mississippi State covers that. And I don't know. I think they're running the football really well. I think Will Rogers has a moment here. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go Mississippi State to win this ball game at home. I think that they play well, and I don't trust the secondary right now for LSU.
I did toy with that idea. I just the way that State didn't assert itself a little bit more, and just my gut feeling that LSU was better than we saw is kind of what prevails here with me. But interestingly enough, the line is higher again than any of the computers have it. So in terms of taking the home field advantage and throwing that in, so take that for worth. The odds makers like LSU. But they like them more than the computers do. So we'll see how it turns out at Davis Wade Stadium. Can't wait to see this one again. It's going to be 11 Central on ESPN Saturday. We're going to preview every single SEC game this week involving FBS teams. Best way to catch those is to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps our analytics. For Blayne Gilmer, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, and we'll see you again soon with more SEC football previews.